This video, I want to talk to you about why no one wants to work anymore, right? Because working in this system, it just doesn't feel like it's worth it. We're seeing like the death of careers. Careers aren't working out for people as a sustainable long-term path to financial freedom. So let's learn more in this video.
Are at a point where I think we're kind of at the death of careers.
There is no such thing as a career anymore. Come here, because nobody wants a career anymore. You want to know why? Because the new workforce, the new generation of workforce, they're not working for the sake of getting promoted to have a good, long-lasting job. We are all working to survive. You cannot have a career if every single day you are worried about if you're going to be able to keep your job or not. Companies are not instilling any trust at all with their workers. The last job I had, there was somebody who was working at that job for about 20 years. You want to know what happened? That company laid him off. They fired him via email on his day off.
So this is an interesting scenario here, right? Because the companies aren't being loyal to you, but they're demanding extreme loyalty from you. Almost like you're in an authoritarian dictatorship, right? Like a kind of Stalinist type dictatorship. You have to work really hard. You're not getting promotions, you're struggling to survive, they're not giving you decent pay rises, somewhat in line with inflation. I've dealt with that in the past too, and it is a bit ridiculous, and they'll be fake nice. Your managers will be so fake nice while they're not giving you pay rises in line with inflation. There's no promotions, like I say, you'll be struggling to survive. There's nothing motivating you, because if you get promoted to the next level, you're gonna have to deal with a slight pay rise, maybe a 5 to 10% pay rise, and loads more work, loads more responsibility. You might have to manage people, and you might have to manage other people who don't actually want to do their job, and they're fed up too, right? So there's no real motivation to succeed in your career these days. And there's a lot of anxiety people have with a lack of job stability. They might be working hard and any day they could get fired. They see other people being laid off and they think, oh, could I be next? And the other thing would be there's a lack of trust, right? Firstly, you can't trust your manager because they're lying to you, as I said, about promotions and things like that. You can't trust your co-workers. They might be gossiping. Lots of people are not doing well in life right now. They don't want to see other people do well in life. There's lots of crabs in a buckets mentality. You might say something, it might trigger them, and they might feel unhappy about your success. Not just financial success, but even relationship success, because people aren't finding success in any area of their life right now because the economy and society is in such a bad shape. Example he gave of someone who'd been working there for 20 years and they have no company loyalty, right? So in the sense that, normally when you work at a company for 5, 10, 20 years, they might give you some pointless crappy award. They might give you a little glass award saying you've been working there for 5 or 10 years, give you a bottle of champagne or some cake or something. But, to be fired after 20 years on your day off via email is super disrespectful, right? And it's just like we see you as disposable. And I've seen things like that happen to people maybe on the older generation, Gen X, baby boomer generation, things like that, where they do get this rough hand, right? And this really is what happens when you are loyal to a company. You have to be disloyal to a company now. That's the new strategy, right? How can you take advantage of the employer you're working for by doing less work, by stretching work out, by trying to get more money and do less work? That's how you got to play this dirty game, the same way they're playing this unconventional warfare with you in a sense, right? And yeah, that's why you shouldn't be loyal to a company, right? The days of sticking around for a company for 20 years is just done. You should build a skill stack, develop multiple skills so you can do multiple type of roles in your industry, and jump companies every 3 to 5 years, absolute maximum. I would say maximum 3 years now, because companies are just not going to pay you in line with inflation. See, no one is, if you build a good skill stack, that will really help you increase your leverage in terms of negotiating salaries and getting more job opportunities. And the truth is, no one is buying into the corporate ladder, the Kool-Aid anymore. People are seeing people making money online as streamers, selling goods online, services online, or doing other types of work. And they're thinking, well, the corporate ladder just isn't working. There's very few people who actually buy that lie. And the only people who do would be typically people who easily fall for the woke agenda, because the system is pushing the woke agenda, the DEI, liberalism, feminism, and all of that so aggressively in the workplace. It's typically only like the career woman or the kind of naive simp guy, the kind of liberal, weak guy who would be falling for a lot of this propaganda and ideology, who would also believe, oh, the company has this the company you're working for has this high and noble cause. They want to save the environment with ESG and ESG financial investments, or impose gender equality, and it's going to help all of us. The type of idiot that believes that type of propaganda at a company is the type of idiot that will drink the corporate Kool-Aid, that will work their life being loyal to a company until they get kicked in the face with a layoff out of nowhere.
And I'm sure a lot of you guys get it. I don't want to work for 9 hours in an office every day. I just don't want to fucking do it. And back to the 4-hour work week, that could work with a lot of stuff. But think about it this way too. What about like in construction or something, if you actually got paid what you're worth? You could do a job that takes you 6 months and then be off for, 4 months in a perfect world. So that's what I'm saying. I could sit here, film every day, 10 hours a day, and get enough work done for a week and a half and then just chill. But the problem is that opportunity for most industries is non-existent.
So what's important here is a lesson in time freedom, right? If you can develop an income where you can control the time. Now, that could be whether, he's mentioning content creation here. For other people, it's seasonal work. There's quite a few people who do seasonal work. They might be a park ranger and they look after the parks, national parks, major national parks like Yellowstone Park in America and things like that. And they would do that for 6 months, maybe over the summer period or over the winter period. In some cases, they get free accommodation. They can live in the local, they get free lodging effectively. And so they get free lodging, they work for 6 months, they save their money. Then the other 6 months in the year, they do what they want. They might travel, they might visit friends and family and things like that. This is seasonal work, and that can be quite effective. Other people I know who do this would be people who drive Ubers, people who drive and deliver food. They might be from other countries, developing countries. They make their money in the West, driving their Uber for 6 months, and they have a family back in their home country, whether that's India, Turkey, places like that. And then they'll go back to spend time with their family, and your family's effectively living a good quality life because they're earning a Western salary and living in a developing country outside the West. So that's an option to consider. If you can develop a skill set that allows you to work for part of the year and then enjoy the rest of your free time outside of that.
Through the struggle, and we have learned from them. We listened to them and learned that y'all are just trying to sell us a pipe dream. There is nothing to hustle for, because in this economy you can't afford anything, especially at the rates these jobs are paying. And two, there's almost no job advancement anyways at these large companies because the older folks aren't retiring, so there's nowhere to move up to. And of course that's not boomers' faults. The system is completely busted right now, and retiring is getting harder and harder, and it's going to be pretty much impossible for the rest of us.
And it is something I don't lose sleep at night about it, but I do think about the retirement shit. I really do.
So that's a good point about retirement, right? I know lots of people are stuck in the moment right now. They're thinking, okay, how can I make money to make it through the month, the year? Maybe I'll be laid off in a year or two. What would I do next? Do I need to leave the West? Do I need to leave the country? Do I need to sell my property and radically downsize? Do I need to buy less house and not more house? Things like that. So in that sense, the hustle culture kind of is done, right? Hustling and working hard for this system just isn't working. The grind, the daily grind, people have had enough of it. And you've got lots of people in the older generations, the baby boomer generation, who'll be stuck in a lot of these management roles. And they'll just grind it out until they can retire, and they're making a lot of money. They're on an overinflated high salary because they've played all the office politics, and they'll be there for the rest of their life until they are fired. And that's what I've noticed a lot. There's so many middle-aged people or older than middle-aged people who are just in these high-paying jobs, and they're just going to ride it out till they're fired. Then they're going to live a quiet life because they've probably paid off most of their mortgage, if not all of it. They don't have kids that are dependent on them. The kids have probably grown up and gone to school. So if you can't climb the corporate ladder anymore, the retirement plan is in jeopardy. And I see things which are quite controversial, like MAID, M-A-I-D in Canada, Dignitas and things like that in Switzerland, where lots of people are from one way or another. If you really think about it, by 2030, they say 45% of women are going to be single. We already see a lot of men who are single and dropping out of society. A lot of people are going to see no point of continuing their life, and I'll just leave it at that. When it comes to older age, they might just look at the Smith & Wesson retirement plan. So you can read in between the lines, what will the Smith & Wesson retirement plan involve? How will people deal with the end of their life? I think after a certain point, people will say, well, there's no point continuing this game, and just say game over for themselves. So that's where things could be happening with people deleting themselves and things like that. Now, just before we move forward, right, I want to take a moment to think what your retirement plan is. And I think everyone should have a retirement plan in some sense. Even if you're younger, I've got a rough plan where I might be living in a smaller living accommodation in a low-cost city where I could just get the basic amenities and be located not too far from a hospital if I'd need that, things like that. So I know that might be way in the future for a lot of us. You're thinking several decades ahead, but just think about it realistically. If you're moving to a foreign country because you want to save money, you want to find different income sources, maybe develop an online income, have a rental property in the West and live in the Southeast Asia, places like that, you should think about, okay, cool, well, if you are later in life dependent on the local healthcare, do you speak the language effectively enough to have a conversation with a doctor? Do you name time?
For Gen Z in the workplace, employers are reporting that this generation...
So I know boomers and Gen X and millennials are all going to have an opinion on this, but let me give you the one that matters. They don't want to end up like us. COVID did anything for this country. It woke a lot of people up to the idea that you don't matter. Read it in the comments in my videos all the time. Oh, well, we all knew that. Then why are you mad at them? Are you mad that the kids who are coming into the workforce now have enough respect for themselves to not put up with it? Well, you know, they're all living at home in their mom's basements. You know, they don't have any life lessons and skills yet. Yeah, neither did we when we were 20.
Dude, I grew up in Florida. We didn't even have basements. I wish I had a basement. Basements are sick. Anyways, I just like flash back to when I was 12. I want a basement. Oh, loser.
I don't know a single person my age who doesn't have at least some sort of side hustle. Be it cutting grass, selling stuff on Etsy, or buying pallets, somebody's got a side hustle because the money we're making at work is just enough to pay our bills. If we want to do something more, we got to make more.
Too often.
So that's a good point there, right? So, and I think lots of people have woken up since 2020. We hear the Great Awakening, people seeing through the lies of government, media, and all sorts of institutions. And you are quite disposable, as we've talked about in terms of layoffs. You don't really matter. Society has a very transactional relationship type of dynamic. Everyone sees you as, oh, how can I use you to further my agenda to make more money out of you or to scam you or things like that. So this system is kind of seeing you as how it can use you, right? So you have to move through strategically and protect yourself. And you also see generations turning against each other because this system is turning one race against the other, one gender against the other. And it's also creating a generational battle because people in the older generation are kind of set in their ways. They're getting paid a lot of money from the system to kind of continue and prop it up. And many people from younger generations, millennial, Gen Z and things like that, they're not getting a fair deal. So they don't understand why these older generations are going along with this system. And as I say, that's all by design. This generational conflict is by design by the system so that people don't blame the system itself and the institutions that run it. And lots of people do have these side hustles, but the fact is these side hustles are no longer to make more money for financial freedom. It's like side hustles to survive, to pay for basic living costs. Many people have side hustles, but they can't, even with the side hustle and their main job, they can't even afford to have a wife and kids. So it's really a dysfunctional system. So the system is kind of scamming you in that sense. And it makes sense why no one wants to work anymore under these type of living conditions.
About that for a second. Trippy stuff. This one goes, let go of a lot of dreams too. Never having sex again, dating, getting married, or having kids. I was talking about giving up dreams because I've given up a bunch. You know, one of my big dreams that I gave up on was living on the intercoastal, which is like the inside of the ocean. Just property tax, all that stuff, it's never going to happen for me. And I don't like living in condos, so don't say a condo. And plus, condos and apartments, the apartment dues are getting so crazy that I'm not even willing to pay that price. So there's like small dreams that I've given up on.
So this is what I mean, is all of us are kind of giving up on some level of dream, right? Because it's essential to survive. And that's another reason why no one wants to work anymore, and it's completely justified. Because people can't even have aspiration anymore. It's like survival. Everyone's in survival mode in some way or another. It's like difficult to thrive and succeed and prosper in the system. Everyone's stuck in just focusing on how they can survive and letting go of a lot of their dreams. For some people, it might be, as I say, having a marriage, having kids, buying a big house. Many people are focused on just basic small apartments instead of buying a house. Other people are saving and investing to go back to maybe their original country in the developing world, to raise their kids there without this woke propaganda, to homeschool their kids. Just people are trying to do the basic things with the little money they are earning in this inflationary environment. And then many people are thinking about, okay, why would I buy a big house with the property tax being high, HOA or service charge type of fees for your property being just ridiculously out of control right now. So it's like everything is about crushing people, and it makes sense people don't want to work anymore when they're dealing with these type of circumstances.
Gen Z, we're right.
There is no reward for hardworking people anymore. My husband.
Finally, some lady said it, and she's older. This lady's older too, pushing 40. A lot of us don't want to fucking work, okay? Like, let's keep it 101 Dalmatians with each other. Seriously. Losing stuff out of my pocket, my bad.
And who has zero social media, actually thinks it's the devil, has come to me and is like, okay, let's make some TikToks. His entire working life has been physical labor, and he is so over it. Finally coming to a place where we are all at, which is, I don't want to work anymore. But it's not the same way that like the boomers are all saying like, oh, millennials just don't want to work, we're lazy. My husband is a hard worker, okay? He has done every single type of physical labor job you could ever think of. He has done it. He has literally tore his body apart. He has to have surgeries like every year because he is physically harming himself with these jobs. And he just can't do it anymore because he cannot get ahead. He's like, what's the point? What is the point? I started my construction business. I've worked my way up. Now I build houses, but it's like, oh, the government's like, you need to pay this fee. Oh, you need to pay $15,000 for work comp. Oh, you need to pay this fee, whatever. If he makes this much money, the government's like, well, actually, we need this much from you to make that much money. Fuck it. What is the point?
And then you've got lots of government bureaucracy, which is, if you want to do that type of work or set up your own business, you have to get all these licenses. There's that meme in the UK, oi mate, you have a license for that. You need a license for your opinion, a license to be a builder, electrician. And some of these things make sense, but it's like sometimes the paperwork's too much. And that's why you see all this bureaucracy just dragging that down the entire civilization. The police, things like that, everything's about paperwork and administration and not actually doing a good job. And then this system is deliberately being set up, like I say, to crush the middle class. So it makes sense why people don't want to work anymore, because there's no benefit of working hard. You're not going to succeed. You're going to end up in the same position you were before, just with a little bit more money that doesn't change your life in any material way. And that's why you have certain tax rates, certain high taxes to kind of effectively push people out the country. And there's cases in the UK you've probably seen where millionaires are kind of leaving the country. You might be getting hundreds of thousands of undocumented migrants into America, into the UK, but many of the wealthy, they're just leaving. They're thinking, what's the point? Can't have an opinion, can't live a good standard of living, even with a lot of money, unless you're ultra rich. So a lot of people are just kind of thinking, oh, let me leave, let me just go somewhere else and live a better quality of life.
I have lost so much motivation to work a regular job. I don't want to work a regular job anymore. It's a rat race. I've lost my energy to do so. I'm not even motivated by
Dude, this guy's got a great, depressing narrator voice. Clutch.
the money anymore. It just seems as though everybody that's around me is in their own little bubble. I don't really have anybody who communicates or talks to me anymore. Even the ones that I used to consider my close friends, they've seemed to just dropped off. So it's kind of lonely out here, isn't it? At some point, I believe that our system as to how we work and how we're supposed to live is going to change, because inflation is too high and people are not motivated to work as they used to be. People are realizing that there's a better way of going about doing things. So if anybody else feels this way, please let me know. I'm not the only one, hopefully.
So yeah, this guy's making some good points here in his video. Regular jobs are not kind of paying people enough, and the standard system can't work over the long term, like I say, without some level of civil unrest. You do see this kind of general depressed state with lots of people. There's a lack of motivation. Everyone is caught up in their own bubble. Everyone, if you see people in general, they're kind of in their own little world. You'll notice it at work. You'll notice it when you're out and about. Everyone's kind of stressing about how they're going to make it through. And people just don't have time for other people. People, like I say, they'd be spending their free time on their side hustle, on maybe just doing the basic chores and going to the gym and things like that, just getting through the basics of life. There's no real relationships or strong sense of community. Everyone sees everyone else as competition. There's lots of passive-aggressive competition, or, like I say, transactional relationships, people trying to use each other in one way or another. And this is how I try to help, because If you're new to the channel, I've worked at these companies for over 10 years in the finance industry, and I offer a career advice service, and there's a link in the description, where people need to find an alternative solution, right? And they need to be able to prepare ahead for how bad things are getting. And there's not a one size fit all type of solution. If there was, then the government should have implemented, which the government's not on your side and these corporations aren't. So it's kind of navigating through this messy situation that you're in, that you've been dumped in out of no fault of your own in many cases. So if you want some tailor-made career advice, I'll help you with the link in the description. And then after talking about this guy, let's move on to some other kind of good examples. On the screen right now, you have a brief comment where someone says, Alice, she says, no one wants to work anymore because there's no reward. Half of us are living paycheck to paycheck, no savings for retirement, no savings for a house, straight up 2 paychecks away from living on the street. So many people are in this very difficult situation where they're working hard, but there's no progress in their life. If people don't see any progress in their life, maybe even the basics, like I say, being in a relationship, getting married, having 1 or 2 kids, living in even a low-income kind of neighborhood with some decent housing, having the basics of life, being able to spend on the basics of life to celebrate their life, then this system, then it's basically, it's not worth it. It's like, what's the point of working if you can't get the basics out of life? And that's why I say people are just looking for alternative solutions or just dropping out. Now, in this other example, we can see someone who's 44 years old who's saying they'll never buy a home, never buy a new washer, dryer or new kitchen appliances, and never own a new vehicle and never be married. And a lot of people see this as things like a meme or a potential future, but this is the reality for a lot of people, right? They're not going to be able to kind of live a good quality of life. So they're kind of giving up. And part of that is, I don't know, this person's circumstances, perhaps due to feminism. If she's reached 44 years old, she's never been married, probably had many good opportunities to build a family at that point, but she decided not to. Can't really blame men for that, but a lot of the economic or realities, a lot of people won't be able to buy a home, right, based on the system, and unless there's a radical change. So the thing is, reality is, if you want to survive in the system now, not just thrive, but just survive, you need to make some big sacrifices, some big changes. In some cases, it's buying an apartment, a small 1-bedroom apartment rather than a home. In some cases, it's like, okay, you're going to not have some of those basic kind of things like a new car, things like that. You just need to make major adjustments, and those adjustments you can make just to survive in some cases, but also for your freedom. You might say, okay, cool, well, I don't want to have a house, wife and kids, but I'm going to take all that money that I would have had, keep working hard at my job or my investments and things like that, or other income sources, to have my freedom so I can effectively retire early. Because I think in many ways, early retirement is the new having a wife and kids. Basically, if you could say the American dream in the past, or the financial dream for most people in the West in the past, would be have a high paying job, have a wife and kids, and a nice house and a nice neighborhood, and have your kids in a good school. Now the goal is just freedom. How can you break free from this system? So that's an interesting perspective to think about. Now, this last example I want to focus on is someone who's saying, it's exhausting that we have to have multiple income streams to survive. And the second comment here, my daughter is 21 and already a licensed hairstylist, which is a trade. She makes great money, but she always says that people her age are not going to allow employers to treat them like crap anymore. They won't put up with it. They will just quit. She's already looking into pharmacy tech, which is another trade that makes good money, but she can choose to have a job that doesn't have to deal with the public much. Her boyfriend got laid off from a job and he was a great worker. Then they hired him back a few months later, but then laid him off again yesterday. What's going on, right? So this is the type of reality that people are dealing with. It's unstable job market, having to work multiple jobs for multiple income streams, develop different type of skill sets. She's mentioning, be a hairstylist, work in the pharmacy tech industry. All these type of things are really stressful to deal with. They're kind of a lot of work for not a lot of pay, and you have to have multiple income sources. And her boyfriend getting laid off, getting the job back, getting laid off again. After a point, people just stop caring. People start basically going to work and playing a really fake character, which you kind of have to do anyway to survive. But they're doing that also with the work. They're just seeing it as kind of pointless drivel they have to get through. So this is a difficult scenario for a lot of people to deal with. And if you're interested in trying to find a solution for yourself, I can use my 10 years of experience in the finance investment banking industry, working at some of these top companies, getting top job interviews and getting those successful job offers, and trying to navigate through how you can leverage that to save and invest your money for freedom, whether that's having a family or to retire early. So there's a link in the description if you want to speak with me. I hope you find that video helpful. There are 2 recommended videos on the screen right now, and I'll see you next time.